Well, interestingly, he wrapped up by saying Dutugamunu marketed himself well. So hail these brave gladiators who kept the fire burning this evening. Now we know finance teams design strategies to raise capital from different sources for effective funding projects, assess risks and benefits involved in these projects. Marketing teams bring in sales, money, which runs the organization. It designs innovative promotional strategies that cuts across people and defy market conditions to bring in profits. This is the first time in Sri Lanka finance and marketing frats locked horns today because the University of Colombo MBA Alumni Association, in partnership with Ceylon Today and Newsfirst, Sri Lanka's most trusted news provider with 5 radio and 3 TV channels, brought them together in this arena of intensity and fervor, the Colosseum, with a controversial history to decide on this controversial matter. Back to you, Mr. Prakash Shafter.
We've had a very interesting debate, and I'm sure most of you are struggling to decide which way you vote. But anyway, make sure you do vote so that we have the result at the end of the day. And if I can start off with a question to Dilshan. Dilshan, one of the questions that arise is the value of a brand. They spoke a lot about valuing brands and the value of a brand. Finance professionals will recognize an acquired brand. If a company buys another firm or buys a brand, you're ready to bring it into the books, but yet refuse to accept a homegrown brand value. And I'm sure the marketing professionals hold it against you. Can you enlighten us?
Well, see, the value of the homegrown brand is really a function of the share price. So you look at your market capitalization of a company and take your net assets out of it. That difference is really the value of the organization over and above the book value of the assets. Now, part of that, and a large part of it, I suspect, would be in the homegrown brand. So only until you actually sell it would you be able to realize that value. So that is the thinking behind the accounting professionals in not recognizing the homegrown brands in the financial statements, although there are in certain countries certain practices where you actually have indicate that as a separate disclosure as to the value of the homegrown brands. But you're absolutely right. Only when you acquire another company would you really be able to realize that gain. So always the adoption is prudent and conservative, and that's how the approach is.
Do the marketing professionals have any view on that? Srikanth?
He said it nicely. It's prudent and conservative. Luckily, there was no finance guy sitting at WhatsApp, which was sold recently to Facebook. Right? If it would have been conservative, that's a record price they paid. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that, Disha.
I thought we had finished the debate.
She said till the last
no, I just want to make
until the cocktail starts.
I just want to make one comment. I mean, take the situation of the dot-com boom, right, in the early 2000s. There were massive valuations of companies, right? There were companies with just the 3 letters in front of your name, .com, which fetched massive values, and a lot of those companies ended up as dud companies. The people who actually earned the money were really some of the founders, but the shareholders lost millions and millions of money because of this particular practice. They marketed this product as something more than what it really is, and then they sold it. They created an unrealistic value, marketed it as such, and then when the sale took place, it was at an absorption rate, and subsequently a lot of companies just completely went down the pipes, and that really created another crisis. I think that was 10 years ago, the crisis that happened in terms of the dot-com bust.
So am I right?
So we have to be very careful in terms of the valuation. I mean, it's very easy. You can be, the hero today, but you may no longer be the hero tomorrow, and that's a lot to do with brands. You have to make sure consistency of brand over time. I mean, I think Melanie mentioned about the fickleness of brands.
So am I right in presuming that what you're trying to say is the marketers are legalized fraudsters by any chance. That's what it seems like.
Marketing left alone will bring in animalistic behavior.
I'll let you to deal with one of the animals then very soon. So, Imal, any response to being called an animal?
We're all animals anyway. we'll leave the debate as it is, but I think more to the point in terms of brand valuation, I do agree. I mean, there's beyond the debate. I do agree that I think prudence is a critical, it's a critical concern in terms of brand valuation. But the whole challenge before us as an enterprise is because what happens is acquisition targets become more valuable than your own brand, which you own. So that is actually a huge challenge as organizations try to list, as organizations try to value themselves in terms of to raise funds, etc. So I think, it's something that as a marketing fraternity, as a business leadership, that we always challenge and demand from the finance folks is to find a prudent means to valuing our own brands. I think that's something that the finance the finance fraternity needs to. It's a challenge. It's not easy, but I think it's something that we need to all seek an answer to.
No, I agree, because the issue there is really in terms of when you value it the first time, and we see the same issue with regard to property prices. You revalue property the first time you value it. As long as there is an increase in the value, then it shows, it gives you a good indication, and it's a nice thing to see in your share prices and the reflection of the company. But when the value starts deteriorating, it is not something that the company management likes to accept. That's a practical problem. So that's why the finance community looks at it from the perspective of a realized gain. Only when actual cash exchanges hands that you realize the gain or loss on brands.
Prakash, if I may just add a little thing. In fact, I think this whole debate on what the roles that both finance and marketing does, I think can be put in proper perspective. If I may quote a statement that was made by Warren Buffett on something very interesting, right? I quote, "In the 20th century, the United States endured 2 world wars and other traumatic and expensive military conflicts. The Depression, a dozen or so recessions and financial panic, oil shocks, flu epidemics, and the resignation of a disgraced president." Right? If I just throw this out to the finance guys and say, look, in the backdrop of this, why don't you do a brand valuation on USA? I wonder where we would end up. But let me finish the quote of what Warren Buffett says. "Yet the Dow rose from 66 to 11,497. So that's why I keep on saying, while all these numbers are fine, there will be a thin line between what you can't actually see, which is predominantly formed in the forms of brands and valuation of brands into getting into this. In simple terms, I guess USA would have marketed themselves much better than probably any other country. Just a thought. You see, this is the dilemma that, from a finance and a marketing perspective, that we face. But that's where it stands.
Melanie, if I can throw something to you. We're talking about brand building and being custodians of the brand and the long-term sustainability of the organization, which what marketing is all about. And I remember you too spoke about long-term sustainability. But finance is often accused of looking at only the short term, not even the medium term.
Reverse.
Marketing, on the other hand, is supposed to look at the long term or considered as looking at the long term and trying to build brands and building long-term value of the business. Any views on that?
Yeah, Prakash, I think it is actually the reverse of what you said, because we don't just value it as at today. We do future valuations on brands. If you have to value a brand, you look at the future cash flows of a company. So you're looking futuristic, not at moment of time. So I would say that I would beg to disagree with you on the fact that finance takes a short-term view. It does not. Although that is what is propagated by the marketeers and that is what is advocated by them, but it is not. Because if you value businesses, if you're going into a buy-in of a business, you would value the future cash flows of that business. You would see whether that business has a future long-term survival proposition that you can ride on comfortably and that your stakeholders can benefit from. So I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with you, Prakash, on that one. Yeah.
So at least you all seem to be agreeing on one thing. You both look forward and look long-term there. Exactly. Good. And if I may throw the floor open to the audience, you've got a distinguished set of panelists here. Do you all have any questions that you wish to ask of them or anything that you want to bounce off them? I think there would be people with mics. The guys with the mics are around, I guess. So if somebody wants to ask a question, please lift your hands.
Hi all. I'm a current graduate at Colombo University who is doing SIMA as well as SIM because of the confusion with this. My question is because I aspire to be a top CEO of a blue chip company in Sri Lanka in future. So my question is, which field should I select to be a CEO one day?
Okay, can I answer that?
Yes, you can.
The real answer there is it's not just about finance or marketing, right? All we argued was that finance is more important for long-term success, but we don't for a moment discount the value marketing as the representative of the customer brings to the organization. But it's more than just finance and marketing even together. You know, if you want to be a CEO of a blue chip company, right, building the right vision, being able to energize your staff, being able to build a goal congruent team, there is so much in that, except for just myopic disciplines. The disciplines are just two aspects to it. Building the innovation in the organization, bringing the change management impetus in the organization. All that is, and the operational perspective, having a smooth operations, supply chain, all these come together. And that's where, Hilmi Carter's comment came in. I also don't believe that both functions are irrelevant at any shot. But don't forget there are so many other things that matter in an organization. And the more important thing really in an organization for it to succeed is that the finance and the marketing functions have to collaborate together. And the enemy is not between the two of them, it's out there.
Do you want to add further clarity to the already confused
Probably
state?
As a bachelor's guy, you're a very young guy, I'm sure. Leave little bit more time. Enjoy both of it. Later you will decide what would fit in. See where your passion ignites, and then you choose. Never know, you might be from HR. So as Dilshan rightly said, there is no one route to becoming a CEO saying you have to be a marketer or a finance guy. There are so many other domains of interest in an organization, and there's no rule that only a marketer or a finance guy can become. All the very best to you.
Any further questions from the audience? Yes.
How far is it true to say that Singapore was built neither by the marketers nor by the accountants, but a benevolent dictator?
Interesting. Dictator.
Well, I don't think anyone claims Singapore to be built by a marketer or a finance guy. I don't know where you picked it up from. But a benevolent dictator, I would like to quote Mahathir Mohamad, who said, when on one of the hard talk questions he was asked, it was not Singapore but Malaysia, similar in regional culture. He said, when he was asked whether he was a democratic leader or autocratic leader, he said, I'm a autocratic leader running a democracy, and that works better. So I agree with you, it's nothing to do with marketing or finance.
Finance guys, do you think it had nothing to do with finance, or did finance play a role? Chandran?
I think in an economy, for the development, finance is important. If you take an economy, there is a Ministry of Finance, but there is no Ministry of Marketing.
I think that sort of says it all. That's all. You're done with it. I think I'm floored as well. Upali, I'm sure that didn't answer the entirety of your question, but I'm sure you're satisfied with the response. Thank you.
Just want to respond to a point which Melanie raised about Reckitt and Coleman. I was associated with the company after the fiasco you speak about, so I think I do have an inside view on it. And one thing I do want to say is about the fiasco itself. You kind of made reference to it that it was a creation of marketing and that marketing caused it. In fact, if you look at the root cause, it was actually more, what really drove it was that there was an incentive scheme that was put in place at a global level, which was really rewarding profitability. So in terms of the local market, the product portfolio was actually manipulated to kind of sell more high margin SKUs and therefore boost the profitability, which would then result in a bigger incentive. So if the people who were there at the time had actually followed, trying to satisfy customer requirements, which is what marketing is, it certainly wouldn't have resulted in that fiasco. Instead, it was really more being profit driven and of course being non-ethical. As someone said, let's leave ethics out of both professions. The last point I also want to make in response to that is that Reckitt and Coleman, which did go down at the time, has bounced back and today is an extremely profitable company. And the reason for that is because of the tremendous power of the brands. Dettol, Harpic, Mortein, those kind of brands. So really, again, being a marketer at heart and in profession, I must agree that it is the power of marketing which really brought it back, and it was not marketing which drove it down to the previous crisis. Thank you.
I think we actually discussed whether we want to respond to that or not, but we were concerned that since, we knew that it was a wrong assumption, but I think as a team we took the call that we will not respond to things specific about companies in the country. So I'm sorry that we should have defended that. We knew the real case. But anyway, I think as a team we said that we will not get into specific companies, right? So, but appreciate clarifying it because I think you have good insight of what really happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Imal. Any other questions from the audience? We have a few minutes more before we wrap up. Marketers, if I may just pose a question to you guys. Partly picking up from what Hilmi has written in the papers today. In fact, he sent all of us emails and conflicting emails trying to fuel the debate even further. But anyway, finance is supposed to be intellectually rigorous as far as qualifications go. And marketing is supposed to be for those who cannot make it to university or do not have the discipline to go through a financial qualification. Do you agree, or do you think that he's totally off the mark?
I think he's living in the 1930s. Let me clarify this. The dean of Kellogg, the dean of marketing at Kellogg, at that time, there's an Indian who went from India for an interview to Kellogg, and he was interviewed by Philip Kotler. And this guy just wanted to figure out a way to get into some university that could give him a scholar. So Kellogg was offering scholars, and he was interviewed by Kotler, and Kotler asked him, so how can you get into marketing? Your background is statistics. And this guy had the foresight some 15 years ago to say, the future of marketing is in analytics. He convinced Kotler, got into Kellogg, finished his PhD, became the dean of Kellogg, and today is the dean of INSEAD in Singapore. So, the point I'm trying to say is, the whole point Hilmi seems to miss is that marketing is not a airy-fairy function. It's a lot to do with analytics. I have taken a lot of time personally, and every time I interact with young professionals who want to enter marketing, to say that the most important attribute is power of analytics. If you want to be an exceptional marketer, you have to be a brilliant analyst. And the first thing, therefore, is to get rid of your fear of numbers. Related to that is also the issue that as a nation, numbers cease to be part of our curriculum too early. And too many schools just continue with arts education. As a result, we have a population that comes out which are fundamentally weak numerically. So the point I'm trying to make is Hilmi is again living in that era where analytics were not a critical part of marketing. Gone is the time that you can do this and intuitively make calls. So numbers, analytics, rationale is fundamental to being a great marketer.
I just would like to add on, Prakash, from the article which I quoted on Fortune, re-reported on Financial Times FT in 2013, which says, does your CEO come from marketing? It clearly quotes that where marketing was once seen as an art form, that's what Imal was saying, now with new technologies have made it to become fact-based than ever before. It's very clear. Now it's no more seen as a guy dropping out of school, getting into a sales function, getting into a lorry, selling, and then he comes up. It's now becoming into numerics, and they are appreciating this value with regards to numbers, and it's an integration between finance and marketing. And you can see financial people in marketing and marketing people in finance in top companies.
If I just continue from what he says, I have two important facts which I can say. You take the CEO of Apple, Tim Cook. Before he became the CEO, he was the national sales head for worldwide. And but if you think that is interesting, what is more interesting is the senior vice president and the chief financial officer of Apple, Peter Oppenheimer. Before he took over that position, for 2.5 years he was the national sales head for Apple after joining in 1996. So what I want to say is that the qualification of either finance or marketing is something else. But you need to have the disciplines of both finance and marketing in yourself as you go on. And to answer probably that young guy, you want to be a CEO, I think you need to have all of this inside you, and the passion for you to drive, which what will take it forward. I don't think it not necessarily the qualification what you want to have.
Finance guys, finance team, do you think that marketers are gently veering towards becoming finance professionals, because that's what they seem to be doing now?
I think I fully agree actually with what Iman said. I think it's very important to build the analytics in the marketing profession. I think at the moment the architecture, the analytics architecture is really being developed mainly through the finance professionals, and that should not be the case. And that's the way the profession is moving into the future, and that will also reduce a lot of tension between the marketing and the finance professionals, because then you can actually assess through big data the value that is generated in terms of every single thing that you do. I mean, you measure what you manage. I mean, I use this mantra all the time in the organization. You measure every conceivable thing, then you'll manage the organization better.
Is that there's this problem with marketing and finance, just a lack of communication, where marketing strategies are just based on with people with marketing involved in that, without taking into fact some of the financial considerations, and sometimes the finance decisions are just made with the finance guys, not considering the brand values and those intangible things, where communication will help this settle this battle out, where if we communicate better, and the marketing guys have an idea, ask the finance guys, how will this affect the bottom line and the profits? And when the finance guys have an idea, yes, how will this affect our brand value in the future? Will it hurt us? It will help us now, but it will hurt us later. Should we just start communicating more, and that will help the battle sort itself out?
Thank you.
Sorry, I hope there was no misconception. I mean, we did sit across in two different tables, debate each other quite aggressively. We just wanted to create a forum where we brought out particular points and to basically ignite your thinking. It's not necessary that we disagree with each other. We, as a unit, we believe that marketing and finance are critical components that make an organization work. And yes, why we brought this whole thing up is there is a debate and there is a fight in organizations, and fundamentally because of a lack of appreciation of the whole gamut of activities that go towards making a successful enterprise. It's not only marketing and finance, but everything else. So I think that's where the whole point is. I think if you're a brand custodian, you need to understand the financial ramification of everything you do. If you're a finance person, you need to stop being a controller and start looking at the big value, big idea creation. Right? So I think it's a partnership. It's something that we need to work together. Right? And that's...
Thank you, Imal. And I'm going to have to call a halt, but at least I have succeeded in my brief today, which is to bring marketing and finance closer to each other, and there does seem to be a greater understanding, and they seem to be on the same track. So in conclusion, I'd just like to leave you with a few personal thoughts. I played a bit of cricket here and there over the years, and this debate is something like asking who is the most vital to a cricket team. Is it batsman, bowler, wicketkeeper, or fielder? They are all skilled in their own area. Professionals, may I add. For the team to succeed, it needs all these skills on board. Without one or other of the skills, the team ceases to be a team, and failure is inevitable. So there needs to be, even in the field of cricket, an alignment of goals, processes, and behavior if the team is to even have a chance of achieving its objective of winning. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had a long evening. Thank you all to the panelists for your insight and participation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience, and I do hope you enjoyed the evening and the learning experience that went with it. Thank you very much.
When you think of a king, it's Dutugamunu. When you think of news, it's Newsfirst. If you think of innovation, it's Ceylon Today. And if it's professionalism you're looking at, it's Colombo University. The Graduate School of Maastricht University organized a marketing finance symposium to show that marketing and finance are not just two necessary ingredients of a firm's business operations that can operate in isolation of each other, but are able to provide additional value beyond their individual value when used in tandem in a strategic manner. But what have you decided? Which function adds more value to your organization? Time to look at your views and opinions. So let me invite Senior Executive Enterprise Solutions of Z Messenger, Mr. Isuru Wijayasekara, to announce the SMS poll results.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all are enjoying this evening, witnessing the historic debate between marketing and finance. I'm here actually representing Z Messenger, the solution provider for this opinion poll of the debate. Before I go to the results, I would like to know, do you have any guesses who are the winners between marketing and finance? Marketing or the finance? Any guesses? Alright, here comes the results. As you can see, marketing has scored 52% and 25% by finance, and 20 people has voted for the both, and 3% none of the above. Please give warm round of applause to the marketing. Thank you.